okay, so remember there was the it was like a TikTok video that showed, and I don't know if you were able to open it or not, but it was like, it showed that there was a like water underneath the water. So it was in the Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
And it had all those like brine, like, I don't know what they were, like clams or something. And then if an eel or something went into it, it would come out and just like almost die. It would get in like an electroshock. And it was like, why is there water underneath the water? And it was supposedly the guy who tried to get his camera to go in it, like it would just bounce back up. It was like too buoyant. So maybe he was saying it was just like such brine or so salty that it just didn't make any sense, and that it's such an anomalous thing. And that is also in that's also in the Gulf. Like there's some weird stuff about the Gulf. They do a lot of drilling for oil in the Gulf, but it's murky water. It's discouraged. People kind of look at it like, like the Gulf on Mexico is cool, but the Gulf in the US is kind of looked at as like,
well, it's like a dead zone now. That's what they call it.
yeah.
Because it's been, well, I mean, all the petroleum has really environmentally hurt the area. But anyway, are you saying there's just like a lot more going on down there even now?
No, I think that's where there's a bunch of hidden pyramids and stuff. Like I think that's where New York City was hit, the New York City of the megaliths, you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, then also, do you think that it was a meteorite
I think it was a nuke.
Yeah. That's what I was wondering. Yeah. Like a intergalactic war or something?
Yeah.
Or started even on Earth. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it adds up with the multiple people talking in different ways about like Lemuria and Atlantis having a battle with each other. There's a couple of there's some other place in Pakistan that shows evidence of an ancient nuclear war. I think there was part of me wonders if there wasn't huge nuclear wars in the past.
Yeah, like within Earth, so not coming from outside of Earth.
Yeah, like I think within advanced people that lived here at some point.
Like that's what probably that could have been possibly what happened.
That could have changed the geology so much during that point. Yeah. The other thing, because the Younger Dryas period lasts from 2,500 to 11,600 years ago. So it's, what is that, like a 900, or is that an 1100? Whatever. It's like 1,000-year period. Okay. And there's like, they claim there's like multiple meteorites that struck this and that during that 1,000-year period. But that doesn't make sense to me. One giant meteorite. Okay. But why would you have Earth changing, geologically changing meteorites that clustered in a 1,000-year period? Because they don't claim that they all happen at once. And I think you would much more be likely to convince me that there was a 1,000-year war.
Yeah.
Then, yeah.
It's a pretty long war, though. But anyway, we've had long wars in the past.
We've had long wars, yeah. And maybe they were longer lived.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. So what time frame was that? Because
apparently this is like BC, right? Or so this was just, the Younger Dryas is supposed to be 12,500 years ago to 11,600 years ago. Like that was the period in which there was. And
so that may have been that may have been when the Great Flood happened.
I think it was when the Great Flood happened, yes.
Yeah.
But it was also, there's in the US, and I don't know where else you can find this, but like there's a thick black strata line that can be found geologically when you're digging. And it's, I talked about this with my friend Jindeo, who's an archaeologist, and she was just saying that it's, it's like thick, it's greasy, and it's like it had to be something severely burning for a long time. It wasn't just like you put out the fire and it was there. No, it's like something scorched the earth. And so, I mean, a lot of people postulate that, okay, it's a meteorite or it's a comet or whatever. But I'm kind of going, no, it's way darker than that. It had to be as prevalent and to be as evenly burned everywhere. Like it's not like it's just like, oh, just like right around where this comet would have struck. It's, you know, it's like a Mount St. Helens kind of thing, but like on a million lines of crack. So that's kind of like what had to happen to create that thick of a black line that's in the geological record. So there was,
Well, it kind of makes sense that if that did happen, then that would certainly push up like a lot of water and push down earth or land masses. Who knows what that
maybe it was a
kind of
super volcano too. Like maybe you could have had a comet strike and then you had the super volcano blow, like Yellowstone could have blown or something, you know?
Yeah, well, that's true, but I feel like geologically, don't you think there would be some other clear evidence, but that happened or no?
Well, yeah, there really is that we don't even talk about. Like, okay, there's this place that I just learned about, and it's called Kilmer, Kemmer. It's where J.C. Penney started. It's this little town in Wyoming, and they have all this called lithographic limestone or something, and they used to make lithograph paper or whatever stones for copying and stuff at printing presses out of this kind of stone. It's like a shell where it you can like whack it with a hammer and it breaks, almost looks like breaks almost like paper, breaks in sheets. And
Right.
there's an entire lake that was covered, and they've found horses, they've found weird monkeys that don't exist anymore, they've found stingrays, they've found all kinds of fishes you can get there. You can find jellyfishes, stuff that's like very bizarrely, in my mind's eye, saltwater aquatic animals, huge palm tree, all this stuff. Anyway, you can go there and you can you can do fishing out there, which is you're fishing for fossils, and you're 100 and you can go for one day and you're guaranteed, they say, to at least find 60 fish in one day. And then if you find like the Smithsonian owns all the other plateaus that this is at, very convenient that the Smithsonian breaks into all this. I just learned about this through my geology club. It wasn't something I had heard about before, but yeah, like there is a like, and then when you talk to the people at the geology club, they're like, oh, it just like settled, like the sediments would have settled over millions and millions of years, and like that's how it's happened. I'm like, no, fish get eaten. They don't just like get perfectly preserved. They don't float to the bottom of the lake and then their entire skeletal system and everything is just 100% preserved. But that's not how the ecosystem of lakes or oceans or anything works. Like, you know, like
Right.
dead bodies get eaten by
Uh,
stuff. So like it
right,
had to
exactly.
have been a disaster.
It was
You know,
fossilized,
it
right,
was
for a reason.
fossilized instantly, perfectly preserved. And in fact, probably half the people in the country probably have a little tiny fish fossil from this place and don't even know that that's what they're looking at. But I think that would have been something that would have been maybe a super volcano going off and then all the sediment going and killing everything and like having giant mudslides. And you know, because like one of the guys was arguing that no, it would have had to have been like there would have been massive like mudslides that would have gone into the lake, so that's how it would have like taken horses, or you know, it just could have been really heavy snowfall from the year before. I'm like, horses are not that stupid that they're gonna not be able to, you know, that they're gonna get in line with that on more. And there's like been 3 or 4 horses in this one place that have been found, so it's, I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of inconsistencies with all this, but to me it just strikes me of, okay, some kind of catastrophic instant event. And
Mm.
but I don't know. And I feel like I do ascribe to natural disasters, yes, but it's far more reaching than just one little area.
Mhm. So you think that maybe multiple wars were happening,
Yeah.
or one war multiple years, and with the technology? Well, I mean, there's a lot of
And also the
literature.
time frame is like, you know, I
Yeah.
it could have all
Well,
happened in one year. I don't know.
it's so hard to tell the time frames. The time frames will always get us confused, I think. But anyway, if it was the same time as the fall of Atlantis, there was a lot of literature that says Atlantis fell because of its technology and its misuse of technology based on these wars that were going on. So that would be consistent with that theory anyway.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in that book of Thoth that like it said something about how when Atlantis fell, like they were still, they had enough time to get their things. It wasn't
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, some people did. Some people did. I don't think
Yeah, maybe not everybody, but
not everybody. And then, then was that the same book that said some people went below the water, some people went like below the earth, and then I guess some people actually were able to stay. Is that the story?
well, some people migrated
I don't
to, well,
remember. There were
some
groups
people
of people that,
migrated
not, I
to
mean, some people
Egypt.
just perished.
Yeah, and most people just sunk with the underneath the water. But yeah, I don't know. I have to finish the book. But then also it's interesting because I recently got into this Irish like legend of the Tuatha De Danann, which are a group of fae, so fairy people, but they were like humans. They didn't have wings and they were big like humans, but they have long life and they live. And I think, like, from my understanding, they're associated with, or they can be associated with, um, High Brazil. High Brazil is like a island that is potentially only be able to be seen off of certain coasts of Ireland like once every 4 years, like on a leap year or at maybe a certain time of year. I'm not exactly sure what the thing is. But I've heard that they could be associated with living there. And then also the Tuatha De Danann there's a bunch of legend about how they actually went underground, live underground, and then they did take wives with humans. And so there's some crazy like legends about that. And I think that's where a lot of the leprechaun stuff comes in too. So there's a lot of weird stuff that you kind of go, where does myth, like, how come
Yeah,
it's like,
I would love to get that compiled information of like myths and creation stories from around the world in different cultures, and just get to the common denominators about
of all of them, right?
what's all of them, because the Great Flood is obviously one that's in many of them. So something happened there for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
But other than that, I'm not really sure. I mean, some people there's like, legends of people coming out of the ground from tree roots, from inside the earth, coming to make people. There of course Native Americans with star people coming down. So like there's lots of creation stories
There is
or
a lot of creation
worlds. There's also like the fifth world, the fifth sun. What does that mean? Does that actually mean an actual change of suns with our star, or does that mean that there was a rise and a fall of a civilization, or something like Atlantis and everything fell?
And I think that like the changing of the sun isn't as crazy as you might think, considering that like,
yeah,
like look at the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs had to live in a completely different air quality than we live in. They had to live in a completely different, something allowed their plants to be huge, and their bodies to be huge.
Right now. There's stuff going on right now that there are people who think that the sun has been replaced by another temporary sun because something happened to our original sun. That's why the sun looks different now than it has in the past. Like the sun is doing weird things and the skies are doing weird things, and there's like people who think that that's because there's actually like a false sun there, or
that Starfire Tour lady that had the Time Chronicle people on my podcast, and they did this thing about she looks at the Soho, which is like she looks at images of the sun, and it takes a picture every 12 minutes of the sun, and she'll look at like weird anomalies, like one of the ones she showcased was the exact same coronal mass ejection they put up on like 24 hours later, but they're identical, like you can mirror them. So it takes a picture every 12 minutes, and then so like one, it would be like, it would have a coronal mass ejection, and then the next one 12 minutes later would just be just fine, like nothing happened. And these coronal mass ejections are like bigger, like, I don't know how many times bigger than the earth itself, but they're these huge giant things that don't go away in 12 minutes, And then she also showed like another one, I think in February, if I'm not mistaken, there was a beam of like just like a big giant beam of maybe light or something. I don't know, a plasma beam that was 100% straight coming out of the sun. And it would have been over however millions of like 7 million miles long or something like that, which why would there be 100% straight 7 million mile beam? Like there was something is going on with our sun. Yeah.
Something's going on with the sun. I think so too. Yeah. And also our moon for that matter. Just our whole thing. Maybe we're
In a simulation. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I do think like
What'd you say? It was,
like I said, maybe we're in a simulation. We're like in the Truman Show. And they're like, Truman, you're afraid of water. Don't go in the ocean.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Oh my gosh. It's a scary thought. But well, and it could be happening at a solar system level where this is not just happening with Earth. So we really would have no idea.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to get out of it to figure it out. How would we know?
But then that makes me go back to the whole, like, are we in a prisoner planet?
Are we in a prisoner planet? I know, of course, there's always that question. We'll never really know that. I don't know, maybe we will. Maybe we will get that answer. I don't know, but this time, I'm always like, I don't want to forget. Like this time I'm like, I don't know, maybe I will forget, but I feel like we're all getting closer to not forgetting.
We're definitely closer to not forgetting than we ever have been, that I can remember. That even though I can't remember.
That's what I intuitively feel. That I do. I feel like we're getting closer to remembering than we have before.
And I do have like this, like, this hope that like we're gonna have some amazing knowledge put on us before we die. I feel like I don't think there is an end to knowledge. I don't think there ever is like, oh, we know it all.
Oh,
and that's
not.
that.
No, impossible.
Even though I think maybe it was in the Emerald Tablet where it talked about these seven basically gods. I don't know what they are, but they come from infinity's
the seven
end.
Gods in the Hall of Amati.
In the Hall of Amati, but they come from like, and like I guess Thoth asked them like where they came from or where they lived, and they said we come from where infinity ends. And I was just like, ugh, I don't know if I like, what do you mean infinity ends? Like, what does that mean? And like, and it said like, yes, even infinity has an end. And I thought, whoa, that's, and the plot thickens. Yeah. So it's like they asked Elon Musk, it's like, what would you ask, God, or I don't remember what. And he was just like, or what would you ask an alien, or what would you ask? I can't remember what they asked him, but he basically said, what's outside of the simulation? And like that's what he would ask. I don't know if it was a higher being, a god, or an alien or something, but like something that would have the knowledge to that. He like that was the question he would ask, would be like, what's outside of the simulation? And I kind of thought about that myself, and I'm like, because even if you think about whatever the universe is or isn't, and if we're as above so below, right, even if we're like this ginormous endless universe, what's the as above so below for that?
Well, that I think those are ongoing questions we'll never be able to really figure out for sure. But I always think like so we have these infinite potentials and infinite parallel timelines, or infinite timelines, not parallel, but so what does that even really mean? Okay, maybe that's within our system, but we've talked about this before. Like, can you ever get out of the whole thing? How do you just ever get out of this? If we're all one, we can never really get beyond that.
Remember, my last mushroom trip that I did in December, which I didn't intend to have an ego death, but I did anyway. And it was I kept on going through these weird fractals of really, really holding on to my human, and really, really holding on to, like, I was like, I don't want to lose being a human again. And then I kept on having to remind myself, but there's time. And I kept on saying to myself, there's time, because the earth goes around the sun, and there's the moon, and like I was like trying to convince myself that these things were true. And then like there would be like this face that would almost like kind of smile and laugh at me, and just be like, just let go, just let go. And I was like, I can't let go of these things being true. And it was like, just let go of them. You've let go of them before, just let go of them. And I would be like, oh, it's so uncomfortable to let go. And then I would let go of it, and then I was in this other thing that wasn't what this is. And it was almost like I was like, you know how I told you it looked very like MC Escher fractal, with like kind of like had some like Indian figurines like connecting and stuff. And like there was like it was like hyper 2D in some ways. Like it wasn't the same kind of way that 3D looks, so it's hard to explain, but it was more than 2D. And then anyway, I remember like I was kind of like I realized that I wanted to find the 3D again. So like I like broke through whatever this patterning was and grabbed the earth again. And then I remember thinking to myself, okay, hold on to it. What is time? What is time? What is it? Okay, because like the sun is real. What else is there? There's the moon. What are things that are real? Where is the sun and the moon? And I'm like, but these really aren't real. It was a very weird, like trippy trip, which was like crazy to have, but it did make me come back kind of going like, huh, I don't know that I want to try to escape while I'm in here, because I do realize that it is a gift while we are in this experience. And it is very calm to be, it's, even though you don't feel like it's calm to be in one brain at one time that's a very
Well,
calm.
yeah. Right, because in a sense you were out of your mind, and it's very uncomfortable, and it
Yeah.
could be scary, and you don't know what's real and what's not, and yeah, that's why it's out of comfort zone for sure, because we have no idea. But in a sense, I mean, you were losing your ego, right? It was the whole ego death, and it was also I was thinking of Joe Dispenza's, like, you're nothing, like you just keep going out until you're nothing. So you were going out, like nothing was anything. There was the moon and the sun, like all of that really was nothing.
But
And
at the same time, I mean, for me, nothing almost feels just like pitch black silence. And there was not that at all. It was everything. It was so chaotic and so full of stuff
yeah,
that it's hard to, but at the same time, I didn't have a concept of identity. I didn't.
right. Well, why are those things like the blackness and that kind of thing, like, why does that have to be different than what you're just describing? Like, can't those be the same thing? Like it is the same thing, really. It's
Yeah.
not blackness. I guess nothing and everything are the same, right? The alpha and the omega come together and they're the same. I don't
Well,
know.
you remember how, I think we've talked about this before, how when you like are in your bed at night, I used to do it a lot when I was a kid, and like you'll press on your eyes, and then it's almost like a kaleidoscope of all kinds of weird
Yeah.
little fractally stuff happens. Like sometimes I wonder, I mean, and I know that that's like, okay, that's just your optic nerve, like whatever, doing something, but I I don't know, the fragmentation of thought when you really dig down into it in a visual level is it's it's well, yeah, we're never going to figure it out. It's super confusing. But I'm getting less scared of that the older I am. I was scared of that when I was little. Like the
Scared of what? Not
vastness,
knowing? Oh, yeah.
not just the not knowing, but also I was scared of
Like
going
getting
too
lost.
deep into the fractalization of things.
Yeah. Well, getting lost there and getting stuck
Yeah,
there, or
maybe getting lost there and not being able to come back to this reality.
yeah. Well, that's good. That's good that you're lost that fear, because I mean, for me, it's still kind of not like super fearful, but something that it's just like, whoa, I can get out of my mind. Like I could go crazy, and then what if I can't get back? The thing we were just saying about the fractals, this wasn't a fractal, but you know how, does this happen to you? Like when, like today I was in the ocean and I was floating and I just had my eyes closed and I was like looking up because you could see light through your eyelids,
Yeah.
but I could just see patterns. Yeah, and patterns start forming, and mostly they're pretty much just like geometric, like the what's it called, flower, like the flower of life type of patterns mostly. But it's just weird that I feel like those are the things, all of them I could see, and it's different than the fractals that I could see when I'm lying in bed. Like right now, I can actually see pixels, not fractals. I can see pixels right now. I've always been able to see pixels. I think everyone can see pixels. I just assume that that's what I could see. It's not like a huge, but I can see like pixels. But
Like
this
I
isn't
guess
like
I
that. It
can
was more
see
like
p pixels like in if I like completely let my eyes go lazy and I look at and I focus on the peripheral.
if I just look into space between the wall and where I am, I can see like, I don't know, energy, pixels. I don't know exactly what it is, but I can
Yeah,
see
okay.
something.
I think when I look at whiteness, I can kind of do that. I can see that when I look at it has to be like a solid color for me. I lose it when I look at solid shapes or like multi-dimensional shapes.
Color.
Like if I'm looking at something solid, I can see it. Like if I'm looking at the door um or
But
like
you can't
something.
don't look at anything solid. Yeah, you have to look at the space between the solids, or what we think are solids. But anyway, the most solid thing around. You just look into the air pretty much. I remember, I
Yeah.
mean, I
Yeah,
remember
my little
asking my
brother
dad
talks
that.
about that. He and I do think I do feel like I feel I see it. I do. I don't know how prevalent it is. I do see
Well, I mean, when I just like choose to focus on it, I can see it. I've always been able to see it. Like I remember asking my dad that, and he was like, "Oh, it's just the little floaters behind your eye." When I was a kid, he was putting me to bed, and I could see it, especially at nighttime when it was dark. And
no.
and
I
he's like, "No, those are just those are just like little floater things. Every you could see them behind your
okay.
eye." Yeah, I
So
was
if
like,
I had
"That's
to
not that."
describe it, it would be like if you know when you turn your TV to snow, or you turn
Yeah,
your TV to a channel that's not really a channel, and there's all that like that
clowns.
like chaotic little snow stuff. It's like a finer, a more even, like it's like more tightly meshed and thinner, finer exampling of that. That's just finally in the air. That's kind of like what I could see. Is that at all what you
Yeah,
experience?
yeah, that's a good description of it. That's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So I
because
feel like,
within that, I can see the little floaters that are on my eyes, but I can distinguish that those are floaters that are on my
yeah,
eyes.
me too. I can sometimes see
Yeah,
floaters. I think floaters come with age,
but
which is
then, yeah, exactly. But then after a while, you just are like, oh wait, so that's obviously not that. But now I can see. I mean, I'm just looking at the energy. I always called it like after that, I just was like, oh, it's just the energy. I can see. It's not really an aura.
see, but when I do it
Maybe
with the
it's
sun, when I close my eyes and look at the sun, I always think, I mean, I'm seeing orange and I always feel like I'm kind of seeing like the tone of my eyelid, maybe. And then I also like when I would, I do end up seeing like more, you know, I always have like the burned mark of where I had just looked at the sun before I would close my eyes. And then you also, I do feel like, you know, but my left eye, I always see a blue spiral, like in the bottom when I close
oh
my
yeah,
left eye.
yeah, yeah.
So
You said that before.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know what that's about. Like, I didn't see it just now, but I probably see it at least a couple of times a day. Not every time I close my eyes, but yeah, I see it daily. Um,
Oh, I could just see like a geometric pattern, because like today when I wasn't looking right at the sun, I just had my eyes closed and I was looking to the sky, but there was still a lot of light and the sun was still like pretty far in the west because it was setting. But anyway, I was just floating and I could just be like, oh yeah, I could see these geometric patterns, and they were like vibrating. They're just like vibrating.
highly defined or not?
they're vibrating and changing like you would see a mandala. It was like a mandala in my eye, like in my eyes. I could just see it like the flower of light. If I focus on it, I could actually, if I think about them, I could change them with my thoughts, but I can see it.
Okay. Now, I definitely have that experience with when I'm closing my eyes at night. I feel like the kaleidoscope is always changing, and I can change it more with my mind, and I even can like change the primal color that I'm going to be seeing. It takes a minute. It can't just get from like blue to yellow. I have to like go through the green process, but I can shift it to there.
I've never tried to change colors.
What do you think is happening with, so you think that's electricity? Are we seeing electricity? Like, what do you think the space, but like we're seeing space, but what
We're seeing space. Well, I don't, it's empty. It's ether, it's electricity. I don't know what it is, but I think it's those two things, whatever ether would be defined as, but that like ether and electricity. Yeah. And that's where all the stuff happens. Like that's where you can create things. And that's where like, there's actually a lot of life there. If we had better vision than humans have, we might be able to see more. If we had different vision, like an animal, we would be able to see more, like,
like more of the RBF like frequency, like more of the visual light spectrum.
Well, that too, but also just more like frames per second.
Oh, yeah. Although there is that concept of the frames per second being associated with your life expectancy. So like humans see 24 frames per second. But if you make it to where there's 36 frames per second, it's so much information that that's what they do to make a 3D movie 3D. They put 36 frames per second in, and then so we have like an overload of information, so it makes everything look like it's popping out. But then like I don't know if this is true or if they've done studies or if I think they should do studies, and this is my hypothesis, or like I'm not sure. But basically I think that I've heard, though I don't know it's true, that like say for instance like a fruit fly might, which only lives 3 days, might see like 1,000,000 frames per second, whereas something like a sea turtle that can be like 150 easy sees like 8 frames per second. And maybe that is why a fruit fly is like, ah! It's like so like crazy, like fast, everything's like this, it just like burns up fast and dies, even though probably its perception it was still lived a full life. And then with the sea turtle, it's like it moves so slow because it only does see 8 frames per second.
Yeah, well, that would be good to know if we can actually prove that scientifically, because that would be interesting.
What would be valuable about that, I feel like, is like, what if we could tweak, perhaps during sleep time or something, we could tweak it to where you're seeing like 1 frame or whatever, 1 frame every 1,000 seconds, to where your perception of time went by so slow that after you woke up you would you could get like you could almost extend your life by 1/3, because what if our life expectancy in telling our cells to shed their telomeres or whatever is actually from our own perception?
Right. Well, yeah, I think that could be true, because that's another thing, our perception is what creates our reality, right? So people have totally different perceptions and therefore different realities. We don't know. I guess we do it like as a species, right? As a species, we probably have a certain type of reality, but in addition to that, as individual, yeah, because everything is in our mind, really. We create everything that is created in our mind.
But that's why, do you ever, I mean, sometimes I do wonder, like, is this all
puppets for somebody else?
Yeah, if, either that, or it's like it's kind of like, wake up, Alice, wake up. Sometimes I wonder if this is all just this could all just be a dream. And like I wonder, sometimes I'll say to myself, like, first of all, I think that the master source electricity is experiencing itself through all of us. So I will say, like, what is it that you wanted to experience exactly with this? Exactly. Because I'm personally, as this individual expression of you, not finding this thing so fun. So what is it that you wanted out of this? And then, which is weird because like you're talking to yourself but you're talking to something else within yourself. But my point is that I feel like maybe this is all a way to get I don't know. I like maybe once we figure out the goal, we'll just wake up, or maybe like we're all in all these different stages until something is learned or something is experienced or something is expressed. But maybe there is no goal and it's all just about experience at this time. So I don't know. But sometimes I do think this could all be in my head, like existing.
I think all of D, like, or E, all of the above are true. I think that is everything that you said is true, and none of them really like contradict the other. They're all, yeah, you can have this experience, and once you wake up, like that's it, like that's the goal, or maybe nothing's the goal, or that where it's all a big dream. Like it's all of those things are true for me. Now I just decided, well, I don't know, I'm just here like trying to be trying to I mean, I think about that whole feedback loop, especially when I'm like, okay, when I tell Sabino, like, everyone's just having their experience. It's not, no one's better than anybody else, no one's worse than anybody else. Like, we're just having our experience and we're contributing to life because of it. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to contradict.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't have to contradict. It is an interesting, because that's the other thing that's the other thing that like I was hearing myself tell myself during mushrooms this last time, was that like basically like it's all within me, like the whole, like everything's within me, this world, but then there's other yous to contend with. Mm-hmm. Like it's really, the flower of life is a beautiful expression visually of what's really going on within the thread of our energetic existence, because it's like, yeah, you are the center of your point, you are the center of your universe, but the peripheral of your universe is touching other galaxies, and so there's everybody else that you're touching is their own universe. And so it's it's just kind of, you still have to contend with other yous all around.
Yeah.
Other people.
And it's right. Other yous and all. When you first said that, I thought of other yous on other in other dimensions. Like that's what I was thinking. Mm-hmm. But you meant like other yous, meaning other souls.
Well, I guess maybe other yous meaning that you and I and everybody in existence all have this existence. We all have this electricity. We all have this consciousness that is getting feedback loops sent to it. So we're all different expressions of it, but we're all part of one thing. We're all one part of the whole. So, right. So basically it's like, I mean, you're no better than your weakest link in a lot of ways, because you can hate your neighbor, but you're hating yourself in a lot of ways, because that whoever that person is still part of the all, right? Exactly. So it's like so you're kind of biting your nose off in spite of your face by being, so anyway, so that's what I kind of mean by you still have to contend with other yous. And if you just look at them as other aspects of you, I feel like we would all be much better off. Yeah. That actually helps me, because like I have a tendency to be a bitch and like bitch about people a lot, and I've gotten better in age by just kind of going like, yeah, well, that person is still me, or that person is still like, we have mutual goals in terms of, I don't like, we belong to the same being. We're both fleas on the same dog. We don't want the dog to die or whatever it is. Like we're part of the same system. And I want the system to, want the system to be in the love vibration and have like a higher, I want it to be feeling way good. I don't want it to be feeling badly. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what you're here to do then, help the people, help like be in love, and help share that with others somehow, whatever that means to you.
Yeah. I guess everyone is.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that like, oh, you were meant to be here right now, like you were chosen to be here right now, this whole big transition to the age of Aquarius or whatever. I feel like, okay, yeah, like that's a nice story. And there's part of me that believes it or wants to believe it because you want to feel special, like you were brought here now and like you're somehow of service. But then, and there's a part of me that probably doesn't believe it. But then, like the part of me that wants to believe it and does believe it thinks, that's right, like I am here doing that. And I'm just going to keep sending out my love because that's all I wanted to, that's what I came here to do. So now that I've realized that that's what I've come here to do, that means that I constantly have to give out love to myself and work on myself and, figure out what that means. And like, it's like just learning about yourself and for me, and then also like checking in all the time and also thinking about my own, it's like meta thinking. It's like thinking and then meta thinking. It's endless. But
yeah, but I
people
think
say,
about
okay,
that.
well, as soon as you, yeah. Like in what way?
No, but in the terms of like whether like choose something Starseed Twin said to me, but it was like this whole thing of, well, even if this is an ascension, or if we are like trying to bring in the age of Aquarius or whatever it is we're trying to do here, or we're star seeds, or we're bringing in light, or we're light workers or grid workers, whatever it is that is, it could be true and then some, and then not, or whatever. I think we're evolving forever. I don't think there's a stopping point. It's like we ascend and then we're done. Yay, we won the prize,
Right.
and then we go home and that's it. It's over. No, I that's why I feel like we can't wait for, I think, a lot of being human has, for me so far, been like, oh, things are going to be great when this happens, when this person wins, when I finish this, complete this one task, when this thing happens for me, when this happens. But then you get to there and then there's another goal and there's another thing and another thing happens. And so it's just kind of, I feel like it's obviously probably as above so below, so it's got to be like that with everything. So yeah, so yay, we're so happy we ascend from the 3D consciousness to the 5D consciousness. But then guess what? There's a 60 or a 70 or an 8. Like I feel like there's always going to be, there's no stopping point. I don't feel like.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know why we focus so much on being somewhere else besides here when
Well, that's an excellent point. It's just like, we'll just enjoy the ride because like you said, it's really a gift to be here right now. It's a gift to be, especially to be aware of that you're here right now. Not only to be here and like that's a gift in itself, but also the gift of being like, well, I'm sitting here thinking about this stuff. That in itself is a gift because you're just like, not everybody thinks like that. Okay, so you don't have to compare yourself, but just thinking like, okay, wow, I'm thinking about this. I don't know. To me, that's a huge gift because you can see the synchronicities in your life or just think how things have changed in your life from when you didn't think like that. And you're like, wow, how much different do I think now than I did 10 years ago or 15, 20 years ago? Like you just are blown away how much you've evolved, hopefully at some level. You're like, wow, I've evolved. I'm not the same person that I was before.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing I've noticed is that like I actually like myself. Like, and when I'm alone with myself, we laugh. Like I like myself. I have ultimately I'm glad I am who I am. And I don't think I felt like that in middle school. Man, I couldn't pay me enough money in the world. There was not enough money in the world to make me go back to being puberty in the 7th grade. That was just I didn't know what the boobs were, the acne, everything was just crazy. And sometimes I think about like when I look at a lot of people's root problems, I feel like a lot of it is that they don't like themselves. That's what I notice. I notice that
Right.
a lot of people don't, a lot of my friends don't seem to really like themselves.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know how you get to that point where you like yourself. I don't know even know when that happened for me, but I definitely think if you don't like yourself, that's what you should be working on, because there's no reason not to like yourself. You are who you're with all the time. You know,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's little things like you say mean things to yourself sometimes, and you're worse on yourself than you are on other people, like it's just like, oh, why aren't I like this, or I'm not enough like this, or blah blah blah. And it's so those things are constant in battles until you just decide, well, I love myself in any form. I mean, yeah, I want to make myself better, sure, but like I still love myself now, and I still love myself in the process. So yeah, like
yeah,
it's
I do
it's
think
tough
you're,
for people to
it
come up with
is, it really is. And I think your self speak, your self talk is one of the most important. I actually, I think Tim Ferriss was the first person who like pointed that out in a way in which that really stuck to me. But it was like, don't ever say anything to yourself internally in your head that you wouldn't say to your best friend. Like if you wouldn't say, oh, like you look like such a fat blah blah, like if you wouldn't use those slurring of insults in that sequence to your best friend, then don't say it to yourself. I mean, and I like if like let's say your best friend was did gain a lot of weight or something, you would say, "Oh, we need to go running," or like something like that. You would never criticize the way we criticize ourselves. Like that's just one example, but it could be basically anything. You need to speak to yourself the way you would speak to somebody you love.
that. Right.
And then that once that happens, once you get in the pattern of doing that, and it's fine if you mess up here and there, you mess up, you start again. You speak to yourself like someone you love. Like how do you speak to someone you love? And then eventually you build that pattern system within yourself, and then you, before you know it, you don't think the way you used to think.
Right. Yeah, it's true. It does. Yeah, that's how you evolve over time out of it. It's true, and I've
Yeah.
personally had that experience. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah. Because today I was sitting here thinking about like if I were to change things about myself, what would they be? And I was like, yeah, there maybe I would change this or change that, but not even. I mean, I wouldn't. It's just like, all right, well, I am who I am, and yeah, there's things I guess that I could do better at or somehow get better. But I still was like, even though, and I was like, and I love you, and I said that to myself, and I'm like, it's okay that I think that, and I still love you for wanting to make those changes. That you're not like,
Mm.
perfectionist according to what my mind eye has, but like I still love you even though you still think like that. Like it's okay.
Right.
Like I'm just being forgiving of myself for that. I think that's a huge thing. And it makes it, yeah, if people love themselves, the world would definitely be a better place for sure. There's no doubt. Like
Oh yeah,
everything
100%.
starts from within. Like if you can't get peace from within, starting from within, how are you going to be peaceful with others? It's just everything has to start from
Yeah,
within.
and you just give yourself compassion, just all the compassion in the world, just because I mean like there's that's the other thing is like if you're saying to yourself, "Oh, I don't have XY, I don't have these material goals, or I don't have these benchmarks of what I should have at this point in time in society," or whatever it is you're saying to your internal self, by you beating yourself up doesn't make it so. So it just makes you feel bad in the process. So
Right.
it actually in a lot of times that hinders people from progressing forward and for getting like and living a prosperous, happy, healthy, wonderful life, because they are, they're putting that barrier on their own self. They're putting their own
Right.
blocks because you're living in a ball of chaotic hate instead of being just compassionate, chill with yourself. Like, it's okay if you didn't get what you said you were going to get done. Do it the next, like, it's okay. Start again. It's okay. Start
Right.
again, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And you're just giving, again, it's the feedback loop too. We're just giving our experience to the universe. So it doesn't really matter. Like nothing else matters. So if you could just remember to go back to that too, that's helpful. Like at least it was for me. Like, oh, right. I don't have, like today I was thinking, okay, this is my goal and this is what I want. And then I was like, why is it that I want that again? Oh, and then I started to think about the reasons why I wanted that. And then I was thinking, was that really something that I wanted? And then I like, as I was thinking about that, I'm like, oh, how about just, it's okay wherever I am right now. That's enough. That's fine. I don't, and it, as soon as I realized that, I caught myself in the process of doing that. Like before, I think I would go back to it, but now I'm just like, oh, I'm good. I'm good. I live an excellent life. Like I'm just like you choose to be happy. You can choose to be happy, and you have to be the one that chooses it. But you're right about thinking about our thoughts. Watching our thoughts is huge. Our thoughts are things. Thoughts are the building blocks, and thoughts are things. So we're sending out the signal to the world. So watch how you use it.
Yeah. Send good stuff.
Very important. Watch your thoughts. Yeah, watch your own thoughts. Like huge thing.
Yeah, it is. I do think that's really important. I have taken to that whole, like, why do I want this? Why do I need this? Because, I start thinking about, look, dude, we die, and I cleaned out my grandparents' house whenever they died. They had so much, we had to get like a giant dumpster. I mean, they had so many, like, VCRS, like videotapes of stuff from, I don't know, like the early eight. I don't know. It was just like just horrible lawn chairs that should have been thrown out like 10 years before that. And just, yeah, I mean, just stuff that I don't even know what, like, but I think to myself sometimes, ooh, why am I buying this? Like, why do I need, we have such a consumption society. So sometimes I also sometimes think to myself, like, why do I need this exact? Like, do I really need this? Do I really want this? And why do I want this? And do I want this because, like, why? I need to really examine the why first. And if it passes all that and I still want it, I'll get it.
Right. Exactly. That's a great way to look at it. Yeah. We could do that with anything too. Like, why do I want to eat this? Like, what is it? Is it just something that's a temporary
fix
feeling? Yeah, a temporary fix. Exactly. Yeah, it's tough.